Okay, hello class. This is Mr. Chang. In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to write out the quadratic function in vertex form, as well as the absolute value function in vertex form. And the reference for this lesson will be 51C in Google Classroom, titled Writing Equations in Vertex Form of Quadratic and Absolute Value Functions. So the first thing I want to point out is that number 1 in 51C, it says that there's a vertex of 4, 1 and a point of 2, -9. I will start out by saying that there is a slight error, and that is that the vertex should be 4, -1. Not positive 1, but -1. Okay, so given that we have a vertex of 4, -1, and a point on the function 2, -9. So the question here is, how do we write out the quadratic function that has a vertex of 4, -1 and contains the point 2, -9? To do that, we have to first remember or recall what the equation looks like. And that is y is equal to a times the quantity x minus h squared plus k. Okay. We also need to recognize that my vertex 4, -1 is my h, k, and the point 2, -9 contains my x, y. Okay. So what we can do here at this point is take my h value, plug that into the equation, take my k value, plug that into the equation, same thing with my x and y, and plug that into the equation. And if we do that, what we're left with is my a. With all 4 other values identified, we can now solve for a. So here's what we do. We plug in my y, which is -9. Actually, let me undo that and do that in black. -9 is equal to a times, my x here is 2, minus, and then h is 4, squared, plus, and then my k is -1. Okay, so now let's go ahead and solve for a. -9 is equal to a times -2 squared plus -1. All I did was I solved what's inside the parentheses. 2 minus 4 is -2. Okay, and then on the next line, we're going to square the -2. So we get -9 is equal to a times 4 plus -1. Okay, so all I did was I took my -2 and I squared it and got 4. Okay, now we need to move this -1 to the other side of the equation, and to do that we have to add 1 to both sides. And when we do, we're left with -8 is equal to 4a. Okay, so now to isolate a, we need to divide both sides by 4 so we can move this over there. And when we do that, we get -2 is equal to a. Okay, so I'm going to pause there for a couple seconds. Now we can write out our quadratic function, and that is y is equal to -2, we just solved my a, times the quantity x minus 4 squared minus 1. And that is our answer. So if you follow this process for the remainder of the problems in 51C, then you should be able to come up with the equation each time. The only difference here is that they will give you a different vertex and a different point, but the process is the same. Okay? So let's move on to the absolute value function. Here, in problem number 9, we're given a vertex of 3, 1, and a point of 4, -2. Okay? So like the quadratic, we first need to identify what the equation looks like, and that is y is equal to a times the absolute value of x minus h plus k. Okay? Notice that the difference between this equation and that of the quadratic is that here we have the absolute value sign, whereas the quadratic does not, and here we don't have a square, whereas the quadratic does. So the next thing I like to do is label my hk's and xy's. So this is my h, k, and this is my x, y. Once we have that labeled, we can plug those values into the equation, and we get 4 is equal to a times the absolute value of, I'm sorry, not 4. That should be -2. Equals a times the absolute value of 4 minus 3 plus 1. So now we're going to solve what's inside the absolute value sign first, and we get -2 is equal to a times the absolute value of 1 plus 1. The absolute value of 1 is just 1, and 1a is just a. So then we get -2 is equal to a plus 1. We want to isolate a on one side and move the 1 over to the other side of the equation. And to do that, we have to subtract 1 from both sides. When we do that, we're left with -3 is equal to a. So then my equation for the absolute value function that contains the vertex 3, 1 and the point 4, -2 looks like this. Y is equal to -3 times the absolute value of x minus 3 plus 1. And that is our answer. So if you continue to do or follow this process for the remainder of the 7 problems, so 10 through 16, then you should be able to get the correct equation for the function. Okay, I hope this helps clarifies how to do these exercises. If you have any questions, please go back to the beginning of the recording and listen to this again. Thank you.